Rev up your engines!
Well, lithium prices, the stuff they use in lithium-ion batteries, have absolutely plummeted in the last year. It was $84,500 per metric ton last year ago, 2022, in November. Now, it's $18,630 a metric ton, which is a 78% decline. Now, what's behind it? Well, guess what? People aren't buying the electric cars. The companies are saying, whoa, we're holding back. Volkswagen just stopped producing them for a while in Germany, the ID.3, right? GM says, oh, we're not going to build that many of them. Ford saying, oh, we're not going to build that many of them. And so, of course, the market for minerals is like the stock market. They bet on it every day. And now the betting on the electric vehicles is going, even in China, the sales are down. Sales are down in Germany, England. So, guess what? The price of lithium's dropping too, because it's all speculation. So now, the hilarious thing is, they got all these lithium mines that they're trying to build. But of course, they were building them, assuming they were going to get $84,500 a ton. Now they only get $18,000. 78% decline. You can't run a business saying, okay, well, we get this much, so here's what it costs to make the lithium, right? 78% lower, guess what? They'll be shutting those mines down. They won't finish the ones they've started up. That's the problem with the capitalist economy. It does not think long term. We got to put money into this long? No. It's like right now, oh, we make a profit. Oh, nobody's buying. Okay, the price is going down the toilet. Nobody's going to make a factory. And then if they do make electric battery cars that actually work, then the price will go back up again. Other thing comes along and it'll go right back down again. Capitalism is not planned. It's like a madhouse. And the madhouse is saying lithium is going down at the moment. Mariar says, my car is a PO420 code. I was driving Thanksgiving and all of a sudden my check engine light came on. AutoZone said it's PO420. I'd like the cheapest fix. It's a 13 Kia Soul with 91,000 miles and I live in Nashville. Numero uno, you live in Nashville. They don't do federal emissions inspect anymore, so they don't test your car for emissions. If your car runs fine, otherwise live with it. It's not going to hurt anything. It can be as simple as your catalytic converter is a little bit dirty. You can put some cat cleaner in it, put a little bit higher gas like Shell premium gas for a tank, see what happens. But you live in Nashville. They used to do emissions testing. They don't anymore. If it runs okay otherwise, you have no other problems, acceleration, deceleration, the temperature's still the same, and you can still go 70, 80 miles an hour with no restriction, it's good enough. Because if the cat actually gets clogged up, the temperature gauge will start running hotter because there's too much heat in the engine that can't blow out because the converter's clogged, and you'll eventually get a speed limit, like you'll only go 50 miles an hour, not any faster. Then you know you're going to have to replace the cat. But if it runs okay otherwise, you live in Nashville, they don't inspect them, go ahead and drive it. Anderson 3333 says, I got a Toyota RAV4 2006 V6, 145,000 miles. Should I change the spark plugs? Well, I would advise you to. The problem is, now, those spark plugs can last. I've seen them last over 200,000 miles, but as they wear, they create more of a resistance, and they need more power. So if you don't change them, eventually you can burn out computer modules, ignition coils, because the gap is getting too far. I would change it now. I mean, if you want to take a gamble, go ahead if it's still running okay. Because, of course, the problem is you got a V6 Toyota. That's a 3.5-hour job, so that's like $500 to pay a mechanic because you got to take part of the intake manifold off to get to the back three. I mean, if you don't want to pay that kind of money, you want to gamble that it's not damaging anything else, go ahead. Me, I'd just change them. Then you wouldn't have to think about it again, right? Or at least pull out one of the front three and measure them. Say if the gap is 0.045 or whatever. If it's still within that gap, go ahead and leave them. But if it's gone to, 55, 65 thousandths of an inch, then I'd say change them all, for sure, because they are worn. They may not be worn. If they aren't worn, you can leave them in, because the front three are going to wear the same as the back three. So measure the front three. They're easy to get to. That takes 5 minutes. See if they're worn. If they aren't worn, yeah, you can leave them in. Rob Hamilton, 2023 says, Scotty, if a car's running off the battery, alternator isn't charging, how long can a standard 12-volt battery last with the heater and lights on? Thank you, Rob. Well, not all that far. Of course, it really depends on a ton of things. How big is your battery? If it's 1,000 cranking amps, it'll last longer than one that's 450 cranking amps, right? How bright are your headlights? How much heat are you turning on? I'll give you an example. I was in a Ford once that did that. Where we were in Buffalo, it was about 26 miles from Niagara Falls. It was the winter. We had to have the heater on, the headlights driving back, an alternator went out, and we made it back. The headlights would get a little dim. When you come to a stop, it needed to be changed, but that's kind of the figure most of them will go. But realize, watch the temperature gauge. If it starts getting too hot, forget it. It means that hey, the coolant fans aren't working, it's overheating, and then, you know, you're going to have to stop driving it. But I mean, in an emergency, I got 25 miles before it started to really show signs, so that's probably about the limit in most vehicles these days. If you got a good battery, it's got a lot of cranking amps that you can run off. And realize, if you say your alternator isn't charging the battery, usually they don't go completely out. In like 14-volt charge, maybe it'll only be 13-volt charge, which isn't much, but it can still keep it going a while. I've had customers with cars that didn't charge right, but they charged, and they went months before they finally stopped running entirely. So you might have it checked to see exactly how much voltage is coming out. You check the voltage of the battery, then you start it up, and if it still goes up a little bit, it's charging a little bit, and you can go further. Well, you can see cruisers having problems. They're shutting their operations down, and now they say in the near future, they are not going to build their crazy little self-driving vans. There's a picture of one of those crazy self-driving vans, right? They're going to make them and try them out, but now they're even holding them back. So much for General Motors and Cruise saying, oh, the future, we're going to make fortunes with self-driving vehicles. Ha, ha, ha. One, people don't want to buy electric vehicles, and two, they don't want to ride in self-driving electric vehicles that crash into things and cause problems. They've tried them out, San Francisco, Austin. They stopped driving them there now. They got a long way to go before these things are going to actually work. Just like Elon and his boring tunnel company, right? He's got one tunnel for 2.5 miles underneath convention centers in Las Vegas, and that's it for the whole planet, right? They planned a bunch of other ones, but they all fell through. Well, I think this self-driving taxi crap, they should let that fall into Elon's tunnel and be buried for all eternity. Well, you see all the people that live in New York, now the cops are leaving New York City too. Over 2,500 cops turned their badges in 2023. They're leaving. I met a bunch of them. I met them here in Rhode Island. I met them in Tennessee, where they said, I'm out here. I'm getting out of the city. This is turning into a rat race. One of them told me, I said, I was in New York in the 60s and early 70s. He said it was really a crap hole, garbage on the streets. And one of the cops said, who just retired, went to Tennessee, he said, I think it's worse now than it was in the 70s. Because since coronavirus and the aftermath of it, the crime is up. And the city itself, look at this. The city plans to cancel the next 5 police academy classes, shrinking the nation's largest police force to the smallest it's been in decades. And the police that are there are like, whoa, I'm getting out of here. I can't stand this, right? Maybe New York will turn into that Kurt Russell movie, you know? Escape from New York, that 1981 kind of disaster movie. But finally, somebody's got some brains. There's a nuclear plant in Wyoming that's still on track, even though the industry's having setbacks. Nukes are the only thing that really makes sense. They are clean as can be. They create a tremendous amount of power. Now, Bill Gates backs some of this. He seems to know a few things, you know? As these people say in Wyoming, we have a lot of high confidence in our ability to succeed. We believe in our technology. We have strong support from the federal government and have a set of investors that are totally committed. We need to ensure that TerraPower and Natrium become commercially viable technology. Problem here is, it's clean, right? And it's a good idea. It's not politically correct, so the woke people don't like it, right? Well, on them, they're not scientists. They don't know anything about what they believe. And they think that just because they believe something, it's real, but that's something else, right? The problem with all these are, our capitalist economy in the United States does not plan ahead very well, right? So, even though they're building these nuke plants for the future, they have to sell power in the future to people. So people have to say, we'll buy that power in the future. Well, at present time, electric power is cheapest when you're using natural gas, oil, right? That's cheaper. So investors don't want to invest in expensive nukes because they see, well, I can get power cheaper now. Why would I buy more expensive? Right? Let's hope something passes with this nuke that they're building there, that Bill Gates is backing. Maybe eventually the woke people will wake up and find out, gee, I don't have any electricity for my computer and my ex-Facebook time, right? Gee, what are we going to do now? Maybe then they'll let them build nukes, but it'll be too late then. It takes a long time to build nukes. Our capitalist economy is showing these big holes, like holes in giant pieces of Swiss cheese. That, well, it's a good, clean thing, but, you know, even though we pretend we're green, we're using a lot of natural gas and oil and coal to make electricity, and it's pretty cheap, so let's keep rolling along the line, because nobody wants to spend any money. It's really a catch-22 when it comes to it. Let's hope they get the nuke done there, and it works, and then they say, it's a good idea, let's do more nukes. They last a long time, put out a lot of power. They do last a really long time if you build them right. So they don't have windmills flying around, or have to hope the sun's shining. They work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's what people want, cheap, clean electricity. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.